What do you think the typical typical company is completely getting wrong about executing the first of its kind of battery project?
I think they hugely underestimate the complexity of a major project and the time it takes to complete it and the cost. And that's usually down to two things, I think. One is that the founders or the senior people, they tend to be more technology or finance. They're quite often not people who have built and run major industrial production plants. And you see that again, it's going back, they don't know what they don't know. I'll come to the second one in a minute. The first one is they're usually focused on the technology and the flow sheet and fundraising. That's where all the efforts, especially small companies, but you even saw it in big companies in the sort of the division that we're in. It's all about the flow sheet, and the technology, and is the technology going to work? And, proving the flow sheet and then getting going for fundraising. And I used to say, even if you gave somebody a complete business case, the full technology and the P&IDs, the execution risk in getting those P&IDs into a production facility is absolutely enormous still. So I think people they do that. And because they don't have the experience of seeing major projects being delivered to understand where the risks are and where to prioritize, they've probably built a pilot plant. And they've done it quite well. I wouldn't say they're easy, but they're relatively easy compared to something, a commercial sized plant. They're really easy compared to a commercial sized plant. So, they build a pilot plant. They think, well, that went well. Oh, well, we'll just build a commercial plant. The founders, have that technology background or they have a finance background, and they're all focused on those things. And there's nobody really in the leadership team who's built and run a giant plant and is saying there's a lot that we need to get in place before you can start this. What's quite difficult in my job is I'm having to persuade people of the absolute very basics of how to execute a project, which you shouldn't really have to do. Like when I was in the oil business, you didn't have to persuade a manager to do a feed. I mean, that was a given. There was no way were you doing a project without doing a feed. But in the battery business, you're having to kind of persuade somebody and try to convince them. I'm kind of the impression that, well, if you have to convince somebody to do the absolute basics, the business probably isn't in the best hands. So their chance of success are quite low. So I think that's what they underestimate. That's what they get wrong, I think. Okay, there's others can get, the technology wrong. I do think what I've also noticed is large scale manufacturing of anything is itself very difficult and a real skill. Something I know nothing about. But once you've built the plant, manufacturing at scale is really hard. No matter what you're making, if you're churning out 1 million of something a year, your QA QC has to be so high. You can't have huge wastage, and people like Koreans and Japanese perfected that. They just know how to have a production line where they're like LG or someone where they just churn out 10 million TVs a year. It's incredible how they do that. It's very difficult. And I think there isn't a lot of that expertise, certainly in Europe, not so much. And the battery industry, I don't think they ever quite grasp that it's mass manufacturing.